This is Unrendered on IKTV. I am Tony Regisford, and my guests are Dr. Jozelle Miller. She is a health psychologist, and she's attached to the Milton Cato Memorial Hospital. Also with us is Dr. Claudius Davis, and he is a Vincentian but resides in New York. He works at the Suffolk County Mental Hospital, I think. Yes, and he is here, flown in specially to give us his aid, his assistance, his help. Folks, welcome to Unrendered.
Thank you.
I introduced the program on the note of this tragic event that took place, and the tragic event we're talking about, we all know it's an accident that took place in the north of the island between Ovia and Fancy, and sadly 5 lives confirmed lost and 2 people still missing. The majority of people that were impacted in terms of passengers in the van were young people. It's always a more difficult pill to swallow when young lives are snubbed out. And so the nation mourns, but the nation is in a period of pain and anguish, and perhaps asking a lot of questions. And the main one is why. I know that you're here to provide counseling and support for the relatives and the people in the community and people that you come into contact with generally. So I'm glad you're here in the program, and I'm going to start with you, Dr. Davis. Because you're not living here, you're Vincentian.
Mm-hmm.
And this brought you here, but how did you get here so quickly?
Actually, I was in my office, and I was listening to WeFM actually, and the Prime Minister was speaking about the tragedy, and I was really deeply touched as he detailed the story. And I remember that he spoke of a lady who had lost a son maybe a year or so before, and now again she was facing a similar situation with, I think it's a grandson.
Right.
And just from the tone of his voice, the way he presented, I could feel the hurt and the pain, and I said right there and then, I have to be there. And I set in motion a series of events.
Right.
And I got here this morning.
So you got in, and we're recording this program on Friday the 15th of January, and you're here. And speaking to you earlier today, you're just in for the weekend.
Right.
So that's a remarkable thing. You've come just to help, and
right.
I guess you've got to get back to your regular duties. Well, we're really glad to have you. Dr. Miller, now you are based at the Kingstown Memorial, the Milton Cato Memorial Hospital, and this is your job.
Yes.
And I suspect you were very active doing the same thing in the Christmas floods.
Mm-hmm.
Is this déjà vu?
So it seems. So it seems. We can never get accustomed to such things.
Mm-hmm.
When it happened in 2013, we were all shaken up, but this time around it's even harder. As you said, when we think of, losing our children,
Yeah.
it hurts very deeply. And, sometimes we ask the question why, but no one can really answer that question because we don't know.
Yeah.
We just have to accept things for what they are and try to move on.
Well, I want to spend a substantial part of this program looking at the work that you're doing. And of course, we're talking about dealing with people, helping them through their pain and anguish, and trying to return their life to some sort of normalcy, if that's possible. And I guess you tell me it takes time. I want to start by reading a paragraph of something I pulled down from the internet. It says, not everyone endures a traumatic experience, is scared by it. The human psyche has a tremendous capacity for recovery and even growth. Recovering from a traumatic experience requires that the painful emotions be thoroughly processed. Trauma feelings cannot be repressed or forgotten. If they are not dealt with directly, the distressing feelings and troubling events replay over and over in the course of a lifetime, creating a condition known as post-traumatic stress disorder. Dr. Miller, tell me about this post-traumatic stress disorder. What is it?
Post-traumatic stress disorder is a psychiatric disorder that follows any traumatic event. As you said, if someone has not thoroughly dealt with the different feelings and emotions that they would have engendered during that time, you find that in weeks to come or months to come, they may, have residual emotions that they are now dealing with.
Right.
And some persons may then, resort to dealing with them in a very negative manner, which can create a disorder that we have to then treat.
And this negative manner, and you can jump in here, Dr. Davis. This negative manner that you talk about, what are the manifestations of it?
Right. The term is well known in the military for those soldiers who have gone and witnessed horrific things, and they come back. And one of the unique things about this disorder is that there is this against your will, where these images comes back to you when you don't want them to. It's not like, you're sitting thinking about it and then you're flooded. It's like you may be doing something else and all of a sudden it comes back to you against your will. And that's the scary part about it. And that's what, I worry about these young people who will have to go back to school, obviously would have to get in vehicles to ride. And so they're going to have this trigger again and again. And so we have to be able to desensitize, one, but also be able to pull on their inner strength, because we all bring, a level of resiliency, a level of strength. So we as clinicians going to have to find ways to pull from these individuals, but also the family members as well. Because we have to also empower them, because ultimately we can't be there with them 24 hours.
Right.
But it's the caregivers. These are the ones who are ultimately are going to be with these youngsters. And so we need to do everything that we can in order to empower the parents and grandparents and friends and neighbors. Community as a whole, to be able to help these youngsters. And, I said to someone today, it may be something as simple as where, the first day back to school, you may have to ride in the van with your youngster. And you may have to do it a whole week. And eventually you may want to skip a day and do it the next day, because it's going to be extremely hard.
And especially when they pass the
site.
Yes.
Right.
That site where the thing took place. Now, does it compound it, Dr. Miller? The fact that it's a small community, so we thought we're dealing with a community of Fancy, I suppose, is where most of the people originated from or lived. A couple of hundred people, I don't know. Very small. Everybody knows one another. It's a communal.
They are related in some way.
It's certainly a communal type of existence. Does that make it harder?
Yes, because what you find, we have persons with dual emotions. It's a bittersweet moment. There's, you'll find persons that are rejoicing that my child is alive, but then they realize a cousin or a nephew or some other person in the family has died. So it's sort of bittersweet, and they have to then try and juggle, the whole idea of being sad, being happy, and, accepting their new reality. That's the whole thing.
Yes.
How do I move on from this? How do I look at my sister or my cousin or whomever has lost their loved one and then say, it's going to be okay, when they're thinking in their mind, oh, you have your child. Mine is gone, so you can't tell me it's going to be okay.
So you're not really feeling the pain that I am feeling. So you can tell me it's going to be okay, but that's going to bounce off. Now, let me just refer to this this document I have here, and we're talking about the whole progression, the stages of recovery, and describes this stage one as, well, captioned circuit breaking. What it says here, if you overload an electrical system too much, the circuit breaker activates, basically, and shuts everything down. And so the analogy here is that the human nervous system is also an electrical system. And when it is overloaded with too much stimulation and too much danger, as in trauma, it also shuts down to just basics. People describe this feeling as numb, the dead inside.
Yeah.
So is that accurate? Is that really the first, generally speaking, the first response to, you know, the people feeling this event? Is the numbness a real thing? And have you seen it out there?
Yes, it's very real. When, as you said, the circuit breaker, well, I normally use the analogy of a volcano.
Right.
That if it's there and it's building and building and building, and then we have an explosive reaction, then sometimes some persons do one of two things. We have the numbing experience, and I've seen person who took it to the next level and being totally aggressive and disconnected from what is happening. The numbing experience, some persons will tell you that they can't remember most of what transpired. So some of the patients that, you know, we spoke with initially could not remember anything in totality, just bits and pieces here. And what we realized is that what their memories depicted were fragments of what persons told them. And it's only after the days have passed now that they're actually putting things together to, you know, have their own memory of the event. So there's a numbing thing that they shut down cognitively. They can't sometimes remember until days after. Because
I won't read on, but from what I've read is that sometimes patients or people who have experienced things like this, if they have a physical condition, like say a pain in the knee before, that chronic knee pain, or even acne or something, those things then can disappear during that period. You know, what is the cause of this really? Is the brain so powerful where it can actually, in that numbing period, just disappear these physical symptoms?
I mean, neurology is, you know, I think much of our behavior really is connected with the neurology, with the brain. I think sometimes we like to think it's a social situation, it's just a behavior, but there are serious, I mean, the brain is the power source.
Yeah.
You think about this with the car. I mean, if you put in some gas and that's no good, obviously it's not going to run well.
Yes. Yeah.
And if he doesn't have any gas, basically it's not going to go in. Anyway, so you have to understand that we fuel the brain. Basically.
Yes.
Some of us use junk to do it with. Some of us use healthy stuff.
Yes.
But that's what the brain needs in order to function. When the brain is in a crisis, you got to remember there's a lot of connections.
Yes.
And things begin to go haywire. And that's why some people, I had an accident last year on my motorcycle, later on a red light. I have no clue to this day what happened. I just remember I was going to work.
So you simply just blocked it?
I don't know. I woke up in a hospital and I have no clue. And I said, thank God, I don't know.
You see,
what happened.
The brain is it's powerful and it's fragile. And during a trauma or a stressful event, one of two things happen, fight or flight. And sometimes, you know, involuntary, our body goes into flight mode. That to protect ourselves, we shut down. Let's say someone who was a victim of a rape or let's say a gang rape, you know, something as traumatic as that person can totally shut down and not, you know, be able to process anything, don't remember, a total disconnect from what has happened, you know, especially if it is someone they are familiar with. You know, they can easily block it out of their mind.
Well, that's interesting. Well, we're at the end of this first segment of the program. When we come back, we'll continue going through the stages of recovery, and then we'll keep relating it to the actual matters that you're dealing with, as in the people that you're counseling who have been affected or impacted in some way by this tragic event. So when we come back, this is Unrendered on IKTV. More with my guests when we come back.